A racist policewoman boldly pulled over a black judge's vehicle, suspecting it to be stolen. But when his identity was revealed, it didn't just ruin her career, it also exposed the harsh reality of racial discrimination embedded in the legal system. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe for more powerful stories you can't afford to miss. Nathaniel Carter, a respected black judge, was on his way home after an exhausting day in court. He lived in Woodridge Heights, a peaceful neighborhood known for its calm and secure atmosphere. After spending his days handling high-stakes cases, this was his sanctuary, a place where he could unwind, away from the weight of the justice system. Nathaniel knew struggles all too well. Growing up in a rough inner-city neighborhood, he had witnessed countless injustices, faced prejudice firsthand, and fought for every opportunity. But instead of breaking him, those hardships forged him into a resilient man. From a boy fighting for knowledge to a judge delivering justice, he became a symbol of hope for those society had overlooked. On this particular evening, his brand new Audi, a hard-earned reward for years of dedication, glided smoothly through the cobblestone streets of Woodridge Heights. The setting sun cast a warm, golden hue over the neighborhood, making everything look almost picture-perfect. Inside the car, soft jazz flowed from the radio, blending effortlessly with the gentle evening breeze. Nathaniel exhaled, finally relaxing, allowing himself to enjoy this rare moment of peace. A time to reflect, to let go of the pressures of the day. Little did he know that peace was about to be violently shattered. Just as he was settling into this much-needed tranquility, red and blue flashing lights suddenly illuminated his rearview mirror. The sharp wail of a police siren cut through the quiet night like a blade. His eyebrows furrowed, confused. Had he done something wrong? He was sure he wasn't speeding. His paperwork was flawless. Yet here he was, being pulled over. Keeping his cool, Nathaniel signaled and carefully pulled over to the side of the road. As the police car came to a halt behind him, a tall officer with a rigid posture stepped out. Her stern expression and the name tag on her uniform revealed her identity, Officer Emily Harper. With a calculated stride and a piercing glare, she approached his window. Nathaniel rolled it down, ensuring his hands remained firmly on the steering wheel. His face?
Calm. Composed.
License and registration. Her voice was sharp.
Cold.
Void of any courtesy. Nathaniel raised an eyebrow, but remained respectful. He nodded and slowly reached for the glove compartment, retrieving his documents. Handing them over, he spoke, his voice steady and measured. "Officer, I'm Judge Nathaniel Carter. I live here. This is my car. May I ask what the issue is?" Harper barely glanced at the documents. Her expression? Unmoved. Instead, her eyes narrowed, and she took a step back. "Step out of the vehicle, Mr. Carter." Nathaniel blinked, taken aback. His heartbeat quickened, but he maintained his composure. "Officer, I don't understand. What exactly have I done wrong?" The tension in the air thickened.
Step out of the
vehicle. This time, her voice carried more weight, more force. Her hand hovered near her holster, a silent but unmistakable threat. Nathaniel inhaled deeply. He had read stories like this. He had heard the tragic endings. He refused to become one of them. "All right." His voice remained calm, but inside, a storm brewed. Slowly, deliberately, he opened the door and stepped out, ensuring his movements were measured to avoid any misunderstandings. The flashing red and blue lights danced on his face, casting a mix of shadows and reflections on his features. Nathaniel noticed it immediately. Harper's gaze never wavered. But it wasn't a look of someone investigating a crime.
No.
It was a look of prejudice. A gaze filled with assumptions. One that screamed, "You don't belong here." A wave of unease crept up his spine, but he grounded himself. He was a judge.
He knew the law.
Yet in this moment it was painfully clear. The law wasn't protecting him. It was judging him. Nathaniel stood tall beside his Audi, the silence around them deafening. The only sounds? The hum of the police engine and the distant murmur of the night. Tension crackled in the air. Then, another roar. A second police car sped onto the scene, its headlights glaringly bright, illuminating the street like a stage spotlight. Officer Brian Mitchell stepped out, his stiff posture and unreadable expression signaling one thing: he was already convinced of Nathaniel's guilt. Nathaniel felt their eyes on him. Not eyes seeking truth.
No.
Eyes searching for an excuse. Harper's voice cut through the tension like a knife. This vehicle matches the description of a stolen Audi from last week. Nathaniel felt his stomach tighten. A surge of frustration bubbled up, but he buried it beneath his usual composed demeanor. His hand curled into a tight fist at his side. "This is my car," he said, voice steady but firm. "I purchased it just days ago. My paperwork is in order. The plates are valid." But looking at their faces, he already knew. They didn't care. "You can check the system right now. The records will prove everything." Nathaniel's voice remained steady, but inside, his frustration burned like fire. "Harper?" She didn't even blink. Instead, she exchanged a glance with Mitchell. A silent understanding passed between them before Mitchell gave a firm nod. "Search the car," Harper ordered. Nathaniel felt his chest tighten. Indignation. Frustration. A quiet rage. But he couldn't afford to let it take over, not now. This wasn't just about a traffic stop. This was a battle. A battle for his dignity against the deeply rooted prejudice staring him in the face. "I've already told you," he repeated, his voice controlled but firm. "Check the system, and everything will be clear." Harper turned her icy gaze back to him, her expression unreadable, except for the thin layer of sarcasm dripping from her words. "This is just a safety measure, Mr. Carter." A safety measure? Nathaniel recognized that tone. She didn't see a judge. She didn't see a man who had dedicated his life to the law. In her eyes, he was just another black man standing next to a car that looked too expensive to belong to him. Without hesitation, Mitchell stepped toward the Audi and began his search. Nathaniel didn't move.
He didn't speak.
But his eyes, sharp and unwavering, followed Mitchell's every movement. From behind curtained windows, neighbors peered out, their curiosity turning into concern. A few raised their phones, recording the scene. The red and blue lights flickered on their screens, capturing every second of this humiliating spectacle. This wasn't just an insult. This was a public display. In the very community he had served. Mitchell popped open the trunk, pausing as his eyes locked onto something, a small black bag. It stood out. Conspicuous. Unfamiliar. He picked it up, his expression instantly clouded with suspicion. "What's this?" Mitchell asked, turning toward Harper. Nathaniel's breath hitched. His muscles tensed. That bag. He had never seen it before. "I don't know," he replied, his voice calm but tinged with a rising sense of dread. "That bag is not mine." A slow smirk curled Harper's lips. A look of satisfaction. "Not yours," she repeated, dragging out the words as if savoring them. "We'll see about that." Mitchell placed the bag on the hood of the Audi. With every inch of the zipper he pulled, the air around them seemed to grow heavier, thick with silent tension. And then the reveal. Inside were several small, sealed packets. A few pieces of paper. A receipt, dated today.
From a store nearby.
Nathaniel froze. His entire body went rigid. "I don't understand." His voice trembled, not with fear, but with sheer disbelief. "This bag isn't mine. It's been planted. Someone is trying to frame me." Harper's arms folded across her chest, her expression smug, her tone dripping with mockery. "A mysterious bag in your trunk, and you want us to believe it just magically appeared?" A chuckle, cold, dismissive. "That's quite the story, Mr. Carter." Nathaniel inhaled deeply, fighting to keep his voice level, authoritative. "You're accusing me, without proof, without evidence. Do you think this will just end here?" His tone shifted sharper, more commanding. A judge. Being treated like a criminal. Outside his own home. "Do you realize where this leads?" For a moment, a brief, flickering moment, Harper hesitated. The confidence in her voice wavered, just slightly. She knew. This wasn't just any man standing before her. And then she noticed them. The neighbors. The phones. Recording. Watching. Bearing witness. Mitchell, still gripping the bag, remained silent. The air between them was so tense, it felt like a storm waiting to break. Nathaniel's eyes locked onto Harper's. "Go ahead," he said, his voice like steel. "Continue this. But I promise you, this won't end here." Harper stiffened. She could feel it, the weight of the moment, the reality that this wasn't going unnoticed. And yet, cuff him. The words sliced through the air like a blade. Nathaniel's heart stopped.
No.
What? His stomach lurched as if he'd been punched. His hands clenched at his sides.
No.
You can't do this. His voice was steady, but there was no mistaking the disbelief, the sheer outrage. I am Judge Nathaniel Carter, and I am telling you, that bag is not mine. Before you act, verify the facts. I demand it. But Harper didn't respond. Her cold, unwavering stare said it all. She turned to Mitchell, giving him a firm nod. Mitchell hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. But still, he stepped forward, his handcuffs catching the light as he pulled them from his belt. The metallic clink sent a chill down Nathaniel's spine. And then, Harper's voice. "You have the right to remain silent.